Okay, so the next part of task one is to create the form that lets the user add a movie to the system. So far this is just a prototype, so we'll just be creating HTML for the form and it won't really do much else at this stage. So if we take a quick look at the mock-up, we can see we've got a couple of fields here, title, synopsis, genre, etc. and a mixture of text fields and a single text area, and then finally submit button at the bottom. Okay, so if we move into the code for this, first thing to note, and it's a bit of a time saver, is to copy code from index.html. Pretty much everything up to the opening section tag is exactly the same, apart from maybe changing the title. But we want to copy all of that, and then at the very bottom, end of the section and end of the HTML file, again it's completely the same, so save yourself some time and just copy that over. That also means that the website will look consistent will look consistent between different pages. Okay. So really the bit of interest on in this HTML is the page content, so the actual form you have to design. So there's different ways to approach this. We obviously need to start off with a form tag, which we at present we don't really know what the action, the method, or the onSubmit event handler is going to do, so we can just leave those with empty quotation marks for now. If you look at the sheet, the form has been designed in the mock-up to be quite neat, so we can see that all the form elements are of a similar matching width, and there's nice alignment of the different fields for each form element. The main way to achieve this is to create a table and then put each form element and its label into a row. Then we put the label inside a table data item, and then put the form element in the next table data item of that row, and that just gives you that nice balanced effect, so that these elements don't have a ragged right margin. Okay, so it is acceptable to not bother with the table. However, in the mock-up, it does hint that it should look neat. Okay, so after that, the only real things to note, it's a bit repetitive. We have, I'm using labels to create little text labels. You could just have this as a plain piece of text. It's not entirely important that you use the label tag, but it's just, it looks better. It means you can tie the two things together using the for attribute, which links this label with this form element. Not too much to be achieved there, but it's good practice. Okay, so the important things within each of the elements, there's three critical parts. We give each of the form elements a name, so title. This means we can identify it later when we're doing form processing. We can also give it an ID as well. It's seen as a little bit redundant, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And also another thing I've introduced is a class saying this is a form field. If you remember back to the CSS file for each web page, I had a form field rule, and the simple trick here is I'm giving each form field a default width of 400 pixels. This will have the effect of achieving this nice balanced margin here without having to individually specify each of these elements have a width that's the same. Okay. Okay. The synopsis is a text area, so that's the only difference there. So you do need to specify that it has a certain number of rows. But other than that, it's exactly the same. We're just using the text area instead of an input box. go through all those different elements. It's a bit repetitive. Probably good ideas to create a template for one of these and copy and paste for the number of fields required, and then fill in the specific details. Might help you speed things up a bit. Finally, we have a submit button at the bottom of the form, and again, it's all wrapped up in a table row. You can see I'm ignoring that item and creating the submit button. Okay, so if we move into the browser, okay, so this is our landing page, and if we go to the Add New Movie page, this is the type of result we should hope to see. So we have all the different form elements and labels nicely aligned. There's no ragged margins here or here. Each of these elements have the same width, so it's 400 pixels, and the submit button has been moved over to this side, which I think is different from what was asked for, but that's the sort of minor detail that's not really going to lose you any marks. Important things here is to get all of the elements, make sure each of the elements is correctly labeled using the name attribute, and also it helps later on to realize that you can use a class form field to identify all of the elements in this particular form. Okay. And following the add movie form, the last part of task 1 is to create a listing of the movies. At this stage, we don't have any database set up or any data to really play with. The main idea here is to create the table that's going to contain this later on. And as shown here, you can put a bit of sample data in from the movies.zip file. If you expand that, you can use some of the data just to get a sense for how the thing's going to look at the end. There's 2 parts to this. We have a small form at the top, which is going to allow us later on to choose the sort order of the table, and then the table itself. Okay, so if we look at the code for that, move into list movies. Again, all of this is copied from index.html, except I've changed the title, that's all. Again, saving myself some time. So we look at the main page content, and we can see these 2 major elements. We have the form, which is going to be this little select box. So we have a label sort by, and then we've got a select box with a couple of options for the different headers of the table. The actual action and method of this form isn't really important yet, so we can leave those blank for now. Following that form, we have the main table. This is going to list all the movie data. Fairly straightforward. We've got our table header items for poster, title, synopsis, etc. And then the rows beneath it, we're going to include our data for each of the movies. So there's image files in the movies.zip. So a useful thing to do, as I've done here, is I've just expanded that zip into my current directory. You can see it's got all the images and the movie data text. That means I can then just create a relative path saying movies/regard.jpg to get the actual image. I've also specified a weight attribute here just to make it a little bit smaller, and the text is all copied from the text file supplied. It's worth noting at this stage, don't put all of the movies in. It's just one is enough just to sort of test that the table is working as expected, and the rest of that is copied from index.html. Now if we look at the browser, okay, let's go back, list movies. We should hope to see something like this. We have our simple form at the top, and then we have a table with the image, title, synopsis, and the other bits of information. It's maybe not the tidiest presentation, but that's what we're looking for. Okay, and that completes task 1.